listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Today, our guest is Kitty Pilgrim, author of The Explorer's Code. You may recognize Kitty's name. She was an on-air reporter and anchor at CNN covering politics around the world for 24 years. Welcome, Kitty. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it is a great pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for asking me to come on the show.
Well, thank you for being here. Kitty, can you tell us how you went from writing news stories to novels?
It wasn't that big a leap because, as you know, reporters have a lot of downtime when they're traveling. And so as you run through an airport, you pretty much grab a book because they ask you to turn off your electronic devices, and then you need a paperback in your hand so that you have something to read while you're endlessly delayed. And I got to read some of the best commercial fiction out there over a 24-year period. And so I guess I at one point just thought, I really think I can do this. I've read so much. I've internalized so many different ways to approach a storyline that I think I want to try it. So I did.
That's pretty neat because you have actually visited many different places. So not only have you read about them, but you have actually experienced the locations.
Yes, and in fact, I'm a bit of a fraud as a writer because I really was a journalist, and so I had to go to each place and report the story. So as a writer, I can't just go and sit in my study and shut the door and invent something. I have to go. So there's an upside to that in that I could get to go all these exotic places for the books. And there's a downside in I have to go to all these places for the book. So I just can't make it up in my head. I just can't do that.
Were you reporting and writing your first book at the same time? Or did you stop?
Yes, I was at CNN, and I was at the anchor desk in New York, and it was extremely stressful. So I would take my evening commute to read fiction, just to get my mind off of the horrific events of the day. And I found that a lot of fiction is very stressful. There's, the sort of forensic science, dead body fiction, and then there's this sort of psychological thriller fiction. And I was getting more and more tense reading some of this fiction. So I decided that what the world really needed was something really pleasant to read at night. And I didn't write it to make it a commercial product. I wrote it for myself. So I just started writing the story of John Sinclair, the archaeologist, and Cordelia Stapleton, the oceanographer, and their wonderful adventures around the world. And yes, there are bad guys, but you're not going to lose any sleep. And it's just this incredible, fun, romantic romp through the world that includes a lot of really interesting places and really interesting science. And I wanted to just create a really pleasant experience for myself. And when the book was finished, I decided that it shouldn't just sit on my computer. So I mailed it off to an agent who I had met in New York a while, maybe 10 years previously, blithely mailed it off, not even thinking about it. Just say, well, throw it into the wind. And he called me and he said, we need to have lunch. And I said, no. We don't need to have lunch if you think it's garbage. We just don't need to. And I said, you can tell me right on the phone. It's not my primary career. It's okay. He said, no, I think we need to have lunch. So I figured he was going to be very polite, right? And so I said, look, I just haven't got time for lunch. I have broadcasts. So if you could come to CNN Center in New York, where there are several restaurants in the building, I can talk to you, but I just haven't got time. Well, I didn't realize he was the biggest agent in New York. And so he started laughing and he said, sure, I'll come over. So we sat down and I don't know why I missed that point, but I wasn't really focused on the literary world at that point. And we started talking and he said, quit your job. And I want you to write fiction. And I said, no, I'm not quitting my job. Don't be ridiculous. I'm a
Right.
primetime anchor at CNN.
Right, yeah.
And he said, well, look, just give me a little bit of time, take a break, and give me a little bit of time to get you established. And he represents very big writers like Stephen King and Danielle Steele. And he said, I will work with you. I will really help you let this, make this work. So I went home and I thought about it, and I thought, I'm primetime anchor at CNN. Do I really want to do that? He said, you can't do it part-time initially, to get
Okay.
it launched. And so I talked to my sons, who were teenagers at the time, and they said, Mom, you are having a major midlife crisis. Like, take a vacation, but don't quit your job
Yeah.
to write novels. Like, are you nuts? And so I thought about it, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to try this. My contract was coming up, and I had another 3-year contract that could have been picked up, and I thought, gee, 3 more years, and I won't have done this, and I'll never really get an offer like this. And I've done news for 24 years, breaking news, live breaking international news. Maybe it is time, and I'm really, really glad I did, because it was a leap. It really was a leap to do it, but I'm really glad I did it because my quality of life has improved enormously, not being on a deadline like that every day.
Oh, I
And
bet.
I've had more time to spend with my children. I choose my own topics. I call it putting myself on assignment.
Oh,
So
yeah. Very
I
nice.
don't have to wait for something disastrous to happen in the world. I choose the assignment,
Right.
and I go.
Well, when your agent suggested that you couldn't do it part-time, what do you think he was thinking about that?
Well, I think that there is a lot of pressure on the industry to produce a lot of product very quickly, and I don't think he realized that I wrote that first book in 6 months, but I do understand that you couldn't probably keep up the pace of cranking out a book a year or 2 books a year while you had a full-time job. So I do understand that he probably wanted me to give it his full. He's a very big agent, so he probably wanted me to give it full focus, and he thought I had the natural writing skill to do it. So
And he was interested in multiple books, not just the one book that you had
Yeah.
written. I see.
Yeah, no, I mean, any author they're gonna look at you as a potential sort of book machine. And when you're talking about commercial fiction, if you're talking about literary, high literary stuff, then that's different. But I'm not writing that. I'm writing the sort of Kitty Pilgrim is the Clive Cussler, Agatha Christie. It is maybe Danielle Steele. I am in the mainstream market of writers, so I'm not trying for high literature. So it doesn't take crafting sentences for days. It just doesn't. So
A lot of people have stories to tell, but everyone's afraid to take that, to show anybody their story, we'll say, if they write it down. And then it's interesting to hear your position because you already have a very nice job. You're secure, but you're obviously a risk taker because you were willing to,
Risk
you didn't
it.
know, risk it and see what happens. So I think that's good for people to hear also that, it's okay. You have to believe in yourself, right?
yes, I believe that at a certain point, it's all very well to be very cautious and prudent. And as a single mother of 2 children, I was. I mean, it's not like I was some reckless person, but I did really believe that the time had come for me to switch what I was doing and change the way I was working, and to try something new, that I needed to try something new emotionally for myself. And also I really felt that if I applied myself with the same amount of diligence that I applied to everything else that I do, that I think I'm pretty sure I would be successful at it.
Wonderful. Now, how did you find working with the publishing company? Was it easy or was it difficult?
No, I was thrilled to pieces over the publisher. I ended up with Scribner, and my big heroes are Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and Edith Wharton. When I walked in there, I had stars in my eyes, and they're a really amazing publisher. They're really great, and I had a great experience, and they were very open to new things. So in the Explorer's Code, we decided to put video links in the electronic book, and it was one of the first novels to ever have video links inserted. And so I pitched to them that I would go around when I wrote my books and did the locations, that I would shoot short informational videos like news packages, and we would put them in the book at the appropriate point. So say you're in the high Arctic in Norway, and you want to know a little bit more about that, then you click on the link and watch my 4-minute video on that. So they were very innovative in what they wanted to try, and it was very interesting. And they let me kind of do my own thing. I'm not the normal writer. So they let me be who I was, and that was really quite positive for me.
Leah and I watched a few of those videos, and they're very well done. So did you do those yourself, or did you hire a crew like on location, or did you take someone with you?
So I am not a good photographer, but I used a couple of freelance photographers, and some of them are shot by my son William, who is a photographer and now works for 60 Minutes.
Oh, great!
But he was very young when we started the first one, and I said, "Do you think?" Actually, the poor guy. I called him up and said, "William, I need to get to the Arctic by Tuesday, and can you get a camera that'll work in 40 below zero in polar night?" And he really just about had a heart attack. Yeah. So we went over to B&H, the big photography store in New York, and we were looking at cameras, and we were asking them, can this work in 40 below? And there's a big issue with battery, but the digital works. So if you looked at the Arctic Svalbard video, that was shot by my son Will, who hadn't really ever had that camera in his hands.
Wow.
And he did a beautiful job, but he was a nervous wreck the whole time, I have to say. And then, then there are things that you have to worry about, like polar bears, and
wow.
I mean, they were real, sort of interestingly dangerous environment to be shooting in. And at one point I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've brought my firstborn to be eaten by a polar bear in the Arctic.
That'll make a great story.
But isn't that neat that your son also gets to go on these adventures?
Yes.
You brought him into this. That's wonderful.
Yes, it was nice. He shot my Egypt videos. We went to Egypt together, and he shot my Scotland videos. And what else? The Eisenhower Castle, the Edinburgh video, and the Arctic video. Wow. And then he said, "Mom, I really cannot just be having tea with you every afternoon. Like, I need to get another job." So he started working as a real live journalist. But it was nice to take him on assignment with me.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And we treated it really like a work assignment. I mean, I treated him like I would treat a freelance cameraman. We had a schedule, we shot, and he was incredibly good. He was wonderful.
Great. And then are you doing videos like that on all your books? Because
yes.
You're on your 4th book now?
Yes, I'm writing my 4th book. All the books will have videos because, I have to go to the places first to experience the environment. Having a camera is like breathing for me. I mean, I can't be in an environment without, wanting to photograph it. So that's just a byproduct of like my research. And so the latest book is called Summer of Fire, and it's about volcanoes. And so, I climbed Mount Vesuvius, and, I took all kinds of ridiculous pictures there. Climbed a bunch of volcanoes for that, went to the ruins of Herculaneum, and I have to experience, and then I drag my characters all through the same turf.
Okay.
But I can write it very well at that point. And it also sparks plot lines. You think, oh, somebody could hide here, or somebody could do this or that, right? So
yeah, pretty cool.
Sure, just when you're describing the environment of a town, I mean, you can't just every town can't be the town that you live in. I mean, when you go to a town, the streets are different, the cafes are different, the sidewalks are different.
What you eat, and my books are high lifestyle books, so you really it's actually a 5-star experience you're going through on a budget that you probably never could afford. So
good.
my characters are on yachts and doing fancy stuff. So it's kind of fun to actually give new foods. And actually one reader threw a dinner party for me and recreated the dinner from the opening scene of Summer of Fire, which was really nice. I really enjoyed that so much.
I guess so. Mm-hmm. So you're fact-based fiction, correct?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. I really don't believe that we should waste our minds. So as we're reading, as we're enjoying our entertainment, I like to put information in the entertainment. So each of my books is based on a field science. So the first book was Arctic exploration. The second book was Egyptology. The third book was volcanology, the study of volcanoes. And I'll interview real scientists in those fields and make sure that all the details in these books are absolutely accurate. And I had the 1918 pandemic in one of my books, so I sent it up to a virologist up at Harvard and said, could you read this for accuracy? So it doesn't, but I don't want them to read like homework. They're supposed to read like a page turner, a real page turner. But when you get finished, you'll have learned, like people who read Summer of Fire said, I never knew that about volcanoes. It's amazing. And so I like to inform. It's, I'm a journalist, so I like to tell people about things that are real also. Now, Princess Victoria and her boyfriend Charles, and, that's all fake. But the science is real.
Okay.
So
you're learning a lot as you write these books also.
Mm-hmm. I just took a botany course at the New York Botanical Garden to boost my knowledge of botany. And I'm actually working on something. Actually, it was a really hard course. I was stunned. But I just wanted to, I try to pick up, I love science. So I try to pick up the science, boil it down to something that doesn't read like homework. I don't like 4 pages of information dump about something. It flows with the conversation, and you experience the environments in the action. It doesn't come to a screeching halt and then lecture you about something. So
right. When you go on location and you're doing the videos and you're observing and I guess taking mental notes, do you do any writing there, or do you just take notes and then come back and look at the video and look at your photos and put it together, or do you sit down at night and think, I have a good idea?
Yeah, no, I sort of input. I'm either in input or output mode. So input is like 6 months. I'll be noodling all kinds of plot twists and environments and interviewing scientists and traveling. And then output, I'll just bunker and write the book. So it's either input or output.
So do you say for 3 weeks I'm going to sit and write, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just completely focus and take the journey with that's how I do storytelling. I'll just take the journey with my characters who feel like friends to me at this.
That's pretty neat.
And then you consider it like an 8-hour-a-day job? You just sit down and do it for 8 hours? Or
I'll probably do it for I'm a journalist, so I'll sit down and write for 10, maybe 12.
Okay.
Take meal breaks and just keep cranking because it's just total immersion. Although in one of my books, I sometimes I get so immersed, I actually forgot where I put one of my characters. I had to go back and look for her.
Well, it sounds like a very fun, process.
It's
like you said, you get to know the characters. They're like friends. So
they're like friends, and my friends say they give me permission to do things I would never do. So I got scuba certified because my character Cordelia is an oceanographer. So I couldn't write anything scuba I didn't know the names of all the equipment. So I had to go do that, and it's just fun.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm really having a great time doing it.
What about promoting the books? What have you done?
I am really hands-on on promotion. So I do book festivals. I call up places and offer to moderate panels. Um, if I'm traveling, I will call, like, say, I take the Queen Mary to transatlantic frequently, so I'll call up and let them know I'm going to be on board, and if they want a lecture, then, and they usually say yes, and then they stock my books, and then I sign
Great.
when I'm on board. But I don't sit around and wish for the phone to ring. I pick up the phone and make it happen. So if I know I'm going to be in an area, I'll find out if there's a bookstore or a library or a book festival. And my books are really kind of leisure reading books, like beach read books. And so I end up in a lot of resort areas to, sort of when people are on vacation and stuff, that's when they have book festivals. So I'll end up moderating panels or doing things like that in resort areas. And also the other thing I did is I developed my own packaging. So I have my own bags, I have my own gift wrap, I have my own branded colors. And so when I sell a book, when I hand sell a book and sign it for someone, they get gift wrapped and packaged.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's truly from you. It's like
it's
a gift.
from me.
A gift.
Yeah, and I designed the packaging, and it's more special, I think. And people are thrilled with it when you give it to them.
Absolutely.
I design my own bookmarks, and they're laminated bookmarks with a tassel, and and you can tell I'm a little bit type A, so I just did it, soup to nuts. I just wanted packaging so that I didn't just hand somebody a naked book. I gave it to them as a gift. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then where do you sell? Do you sell the packaging or sell the bookmarks, or they just?
No, they come with the signed copy. So if you make the effort to come to one of my book signings, then you get a gift wrap. And it actually drives sales a little bit, because people will see, well, I'll get one for Aunt Mabel and Aunt Susie and Aunt Jane too, as long as they're gift wrapped.
Right. Well, it's a little more exciting. It's like I said, a gift from the author. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Nice idea. You're entrepreneurial.
Kitty, do you do any social media to promote your books?
Oh, I do a lot of social media. I do Twitter. I do Facebook. I do Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I do. Oh, what else do I do? I can't even remember. I just do so much. Lots.
I always thought of Pinterest as look for recipes, but we keep hearing about people using that as a social media.
It's great. I have boards called John Sinclair's Wheels, so it's all the cars that my character John Sinclair wants to drive.
Wow.
And he has quite a taste for cars. I have Cordelia Stapleton Style, which is all of her clothes, and I have Dinners to Die For, and they're like very fancy dinners, because I write. I have tea. They are always having afternoon tea in my books, because my characters are based in London. So I have afternoon tea. My favorite places for afternoon tea. So I have lots of boards that if you want to immerse yourself in the world of Cordelia and John Sinclair, you can just go play around on Pinterest and look at all this stuff too.
Which is perfect, because once you fall in love with the book, you don't want to say goodbye to the characters, right? You want to find out more about them. So it's very exciting just to hear you talk about this, because you're like, okay, this is like you really thought this out, and it seems perfect.
Well, I'm going with my instincts. I'm very visual, as you can tell. It's not about the words for me. It's about the feeling and the imagery and the creation of an atmosphere that I want to give my readers. And it's not about the words. It's about the whole experience. So that's how I approach it. That's when I fall in love with the book, is when I want to go live at Pemberley, or when I want to go, live at Downton Abbey. I want to immerse myself in that world for a while. And that's how I write the books, very visually, and everything I do is very visual. I know it's different. I know it's an unusual approach. It's the only way I know how to do it. If I had to be a traditional author, they'd probably throw me off the boat. I just don't know how to do that. I know how to be who I am. And I think that if my readers tell me I want more, I want to live in Kitty's world. And, I want to give them a world where they can come home at night and they don't care if the laundry's done. They can put their feet up and, spend an afternoon in Paris with, my characters and just let everything go for a little bit. And I think that's why I'm writing, is to make people relax and enjoy life. And that's my whole philosophy. So it really comes more from a philosophy than anything.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful philosophy. Yeah.
So, Kitty, we have just a couple more questions. What's your best advice for authors or people who are writing their first book?
I really think you just write, and you should just write what you want to write. So don't think about genres, or don't think about who you're like or where you fit in, and it's just not worth it. Write what comes from your heart, your soul, and write the book that you want to read, and that will speak really loudly in the marketplace. And maybe it will be a little offbeat. Mine are a little offbeat. They're romance, adventure, travel, science. Like it's kind of a weird hybrid, right? But if you're interested in gardening and cooking and I don't know, hedgehogs, then write about that. I see authors who like it completely. I read H is for Hawk. Now, who would think that a book all about hawks, like really all about hawks, would just be like that overwhelming? But the woman clearly loves hawks. And I just read Soul of an Octopus too, and it's a gorgeous book, and it's all about some woman who fell in love with an octopus, and it's great. So they're weird topics, but if you embrace them with passion, they're going to sell.
Yeah, I think the passion, people can see the passion. You're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you if they have any questions or want to reach out?
Well, I have a website. So as you know, there are videos there, and there's also a contact button, and that contact button has an email, and I can get an email from you anytime you like. You can look on the website and see what books I have also. That's how they get in touch with me. It's very easy. And I respond to my emails, so I'm not, up on an ivory tower. So
okay, wonderful. And what about purchasing your books?
They're on every sort of online. If you wanted to go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or just every single area, if you go to an independent bookstore, which I really, really strongly recommend, they will order it for you. So
that's good to know. So we can go to our local bookstore and request it, and they can order it. Okay.
Right.
Good to know.
Yeah, most bookstores will order a book for you if it has the right codes and things. So it's very easy to get a book from an independent bookstore, and I like to encourage the neighborhood bookstores. I really do, because they're just such a resource for the country.
Yes, yeah, and for the communities, yeah.
Well, thank you, Kitty, for being our guest today. We appreciate you spending the time with us.
It's an absolute pleasure. I enjoyed talking to you very much.
Thanks.
We did too. It was very fun talking to you.
And thanks for listening to the Author Inside You podcast. And until next time,
right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.